I find it insane how I never asked to be here. I never chose to be here. I never asked to be born. And I'm being forced to stay here. I never chose to be here, so I should have the right to die. I should have the right to leave. And whenever there's a suicidal person and they say why they're suicidal, there's always going to be, people with, they're about suicide prevention and like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, and like, your family and all that shit, and life gets better and all that shit. But the thing is, they don't know. They're not in your shoes. And you know what I really, here's something. Here's a good example. Of how people always say, oh, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It's really ironic because the person who said that committed suicide. But beyond that, suicide is not a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It's a permanent solution to a permanent problem. Because if living is the problem, life itself is the problem. If being alive is the problem, then that is lifelong. That is permanent for that person. Because after they die, they cease to exist. And from their conscious perceptual view, there is no perception of space and time, and everything stops after death. You will cease to exist, and from your perspective, there is no such thing. There will be no perception of space and time. There basically is no such thing as perspective. So your entire life, your entire existence, that is technically your forever to you. That is lifelong. That's what permanent means. So if living is the problem, then it is a permanent problem, and suicide is a permanent solution. And let me get this off my chest, but you know why? Living for the sake of other people is really just bullshit, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But let me tell you why people or why the government is all about preventing suicide and suicide prevention. It's not because they care. The only reason they care is because they don't want to lose workers. Here's a point. Now, there's euthanasia, or however the fuck you say it. It's basically just painless suicide, but it's only for the terminally ill. It's not even legal in most countries. It's legal in like Switzerland and some other countries, but it's only for the terminally ill. Basically, assisted suicide, painless suicide. It's for the terminally ill, but not the quote mentally ill. Why is that? Well, because it's not really just because the terminally ill are, they're in pain and it's like a lifelong uncurable disease. Because the thing is, that's with mental illness too. Most mental illnesses are uncurable and they last lives. They're lifelong. There's no cure and they're lifelong. But the difference between those said mental illnesses and those terminal illnesses is the person with the terminal illness can't work. The person with the terminal illness is dying slowly day by day, and they cannot work. And the government recognizes that, so they can offer euthanasia, basically painless suicide. But with the mentally ill, most people with mental illnesses can still hold down a job. They can still contribute to society. It doesn't have to be a good paying job or not. You could be a wage slave. I mean, everybody who works a job is a wage slave regardless, but when I say wage slave, I mean like minimum wage. Like you could be a janitor, you could be a cashier. That's still something to them because you're still bringing in profit for the elite. You're still bringing in profit for them. You can still hold on a job. If you're terminally ill, like if you have cancer or like some extremely like severe condition that's physically like eating you alive, like ALS or something, you can't work. You can't really do anything but just be in constant pain. But with most mental illnesses, aside from like schizophrenia or like intellectual disability, like mental retardation, you can still hold down a job and contribute to society, even though you're, quote, mentally ill, and most mental illnesses are lifelong and have no cures, just like most terminal illnesses. They don't offer euthanasia for mentally ill people because, you can still work. And because the truth is, if they did, lots of people would just be offing themselves, and society cannot have that, because then the people who run the said society will lose profit, will lose power, because lots of people would just be committing suicide at extremely high rates. Lots of people will just quit life. Lots of people will just kill themselves. And if that does happen, they'll lose profit, because they profit off people working, they profit off people contributing to society for them to get money in their pockets, and they'll slowly lose power, because then they realize they don't have power over people, because people are freeing themselves, people are escaping. That's basically the whole heart and the core of suicide prevention in most of society's standpoint. A lot of them, they think they'll really make you get better. It's either that, what I just said about keeping money in the elite's pockets, or because they're extremely selfish, and they basically want you to live for the sake of other people. They basically saying, as long as you're, like, I don't care that you're alive and suffering every day. It's better that you're alive and suffering than you being dead and not. That's basically what it is. Oh, you have a family. What about your mother? What about your father? You kill yourself. What are you gonna make them do? But it's not. They shouldn't matter. They're irrelevant. They're irrelevant. They're fucking irrelevant, because the truth is that person did not decide to be here. So at least they should have a right to leave if they want to. At the bare minimum, they should have a right to die if they want to. But they don't. And that's not fair. That's the problem with suicide prevention. It's bullshit. And yeah, that's that. The only true solution to the problem of life is death.